Papers, please. Yours are not in order. Part 2, the surveillance state. Cutting to the chase, 2 things. 1, get a passport. 2, I'm not a lawyer. Don't listen to me. I've only wasted 15 seconds of your life. Okay, you're watching? Okay, here we go. I did a video about primary ID. It'll be listed below, but we're going to talk about 2 main ones. A passport and a state-issued ID card, not a driver's license. Most of what I'm going to talk about is for a person walking down the street. Having a photo ID card is basically like a driver's license, only it's a walker's license or a bicyclist's license. It's a license to prove your identity. Primary ID proves who you are and that you have citizenship. Secondary can be tolerated by a police officer. But what if you have primary ID that's expired? I'll get into how that happened, but let's talk about the different forms of primary ID. A military ID of any kind. A federal agency issued Personal Identity Verification card, which is kind of similar. It's got a microchip in it or whatever. Any passport from any country. And especially from Canada, because we had a treaty with them. Look up what Trump's done to that lately. And very much better, a book passport for the U.S. or, if you want to, the card passport. But below that is the state-issued ID that has some issues. It usually, but not always, includes an address. You get pulled over. You have a driver's license. Is this your current address? Okay. Now you're walking down the street and all you've got is a passport. There's no basis for asking about your address because there isn't one printed on it. It sounds awkward. Why do you need my confirming my address? But there isn't an address on the passport, is there? No. Say it like that because that means you don't really look at it very often. Why are you asking me for my address? Why did you stop me? It's a Terry stop. It's a fishing expedition. It's a way of random spot checking people at random. It's not random. It's targeted. It's going to be profiled in one way or another. Okay, now we get up the next part. Do you have any valid ID on you? No. Do you have any ID on you? I am in possession of a expired passport. Here it is. It's readable, isn't it? Okay. Why are you stopping me? I'll do all the questions. Okay. Do you have a valid Oregon State ID or any other state ID? I do not have a valid Oregon State ID. Do you have any other ID? Well, I have an invalid Oregon State ID. Well, give me it. Okay, and they'd run that information. And at that point, the police officers start because if you have ID that isn't considered current, they're required to do a background check. They're required to do a wants and warrants check. Which, at that point, unless they're willing to say some other thing, that's the only reason they stopped you. They just wanted to do a wants and warrants check. It's a Terry stop. Terry stops are supposed to be based on actual suspicion and probable cause. They're not. It's a fishing expedition. Okay. Did you do a wants and warrants check? Just ask them. Yes. Did you find anything? No. Okay, can I have my ID now so I can go? At that point, he has 2 choices. Take you in with expired ID. Doesn't matter if it's a city, county, or state issued. Doesn't matter if it's a passport. Which takes longer and has more paperwork. And at that point, they're like, why are you bringing him in? We know you ran a background check. He ain't got shit. Versus, I'm not going to answer your questions. No, I'm answering your questions. I just don't have the ability to answer. And if they ask you, well, what's your current address? Oh, I am currently between apartments. I'm walking between one house and another. I didn't answer their question. Oh, you mean, do I have a place to live? Well, sure I do. But I don't want to tell you that because I don't want to give you information because, again, it's a cop doing a Terry stop. Nothing about what they're doing is technically within the law. It's not lawful. It isn't. Yes, it's not against the law for them to do it. It's also not against the law for them to lie to you. It's against the law for them to show up in a courtroom and lie to the judge. And if they push it enough, you're in a courtroom and he's going to have to say, I rejected an expired passport when I was holding it in my hands, or I ran it and found nothing. Either case, the judge is going to be like, why are we here? And then he's going to ask the magic words, what was your basis for stopping the guy? And he's going to say, I didn't have one, if the judge is getting angry at them, which happened. And it was funny to watch it. So let's move on. Again, your ID, your paperwork, my papers are never valid. But I have them. And is that secondary ID? It's primary ID, but it's expired. Expired ID is considered acceptable. How did I end up with it? I lost them. I didn't know I lost them in a coat that I'd washed and dried. Put it away for the winter or whatever. So I applied for both and got them. Then I found them again. And I'm like, well, I don't want to carry the good ID. I already lost these. I'll carry these. It still said same number of years at the time. Now it's invalid. And I lost the good ones. But for a while I had the good ones packed away. And now we're going to talk about where we pack away our real IDs. The good ones. By the way, I want to point out, this is pre-RFID, but accidentally zapping it isn't illegal. So let's move on. Just don't zap the card. That will actually get you in trouble. Here we go. You're going to make a dossier from today's date backwards that goes back all the way to your birth, including your permanent record from high school and grade school, which you can request by having compelling the county that you went to school in to give you all that data. Get every debt record you have. Get everything about yourself. Collect it together and look for everything that's bullshit that would affect how people look at you. Your permanent record in grade school and high school, you can request it be destroyed. Not suppressed, but destroyed. Why? By claiming that you're challenging every statement in it. It's going to have bullshit in there that shouldn't be in. And it shouldn't be recorded after a certain point because it doesn't match you currently. And unless the legal system or whatever has a valid reason to keep it, you can demand it be destroyed. You keep your original because you have the original statement. No one can lie about it because you can always say, well, I had it destroyed because it was invalid, but this is what the fucker really said. You said something else. Same thing with your debt record. Yeah, I had valid debts and debts that didn't get paid quickly enough. But you can also say, I want that removed because it's prejudicial or whatever. Get a lawyer to help you. Go to legal aid. But you go from today's date backwards, collecting everything and collecting all your records. Every month and then year's worth of data, you recollate it into an 8x11 format by collaging it. Get all the stuff compacted. Take all of your pay stubs and stack them together to where that they'll fit on a single sheet of paper. Front and back, photocopy them. You keep the originals over here until legally you're allowed to throw them away because it's past 5 years or whatever it is. But your collated version here is on a photocopy format where the photocopier produces, let's say, archival grade prints. That actually happens, by the way. You can actually look into it. And it's double-sided, so it takes up the least amount of space per month. And you stack them together until you get a full year's worth. Make sure that that year's finalized. You can't find any more data. If you had a debt created that year or a false accusation through the police or whatever, you include it. Because all the time you're doing this, you also do full background check. Meaning you're requesting, I want every accusation that you can find on record. I don't want you to bring up an accusation later. I want all of it. Get a legal aid person to help you with this. Get all of your data. And then dispute anything that makes you look bad because it might fly. Go ahead and do it. But keep it in your permanent record as an accusation that was made or a statement made about you when you were 7, talking about you being stinky or whatever. Whatever it is, just keep all the records all the way back. Collating every year's worth. And keep them stacked up in a box. The box you're going to use, if you can get away with it, is an 8x11 internal dimension space to put in papers. And it will be an ammo box. It's called a flare box because it holds aerial flares. It's 8x11 inside. I have 2 of them. They're precious. They're wonderful. Keep it in that. Or some other method, but just keep them together. Mine is this thick and a little bit more. Just pack it in tightly. If the format for the originals doesn't fit 8x11 because they're legal size or whatever, just keep the originals as well, but photocopy them down to fit that. You just need the information there to where you have a reference to it. And again, anything you don't have to keep beyond a certain point, consider destroying. And again, anything about your past that's held by some other system, especially one that's insecure so Elon Musk can get it, challenge it and demand it be erased and state We can make this messy, or you can just erase it. Say, it's prejudicial. I'm not a 7-year-old kid that got accused of being Captain Fartnut. Whatever. Whatever basis you got for this. But get rid of as much of it as you can in their databases, because it will be leaked. Okay? Now, you have your ID, and I've already told you that the reason I have this tattered piece of shit is because I thought I'd lost it and found it later. Little wrinkle on this. I had also changed addresses. I had applied for my passport and my ID in the same year. You want to do that here, at this location. Then when I lost it, I was at the other location. So I applied for it again and got it there. And then by the time it was issued with that address on it, I was at this location. Do I re-update it to add my current address to it? Or do I only hand the cop the current issue passport? Or do I hand him the old one for both and say I'm between apartments, not really homeless? Or in the case of when I was homeless, because over a 10-year period of time, I was off and on, I was homeless. You can do that. So let's review. 1, the only ID you're supposed to be carrying should be a fucking passport. A paper one. Not saying you can zap the RFID. I'm just saying that happens sometimes. Next, carrying an outdated one or expired one, give them a choice. Do this or you gotta drive me to my house and go get it. I'm perfectly willing to. Hey, you can search my house. I've got all sorts of goofy stuff I get off the internet because I'm a freak like that. I don't think they're going to want to search your house. Don't offer to. Don't offer them anything. If you show them a passport and they want to know your address, ask them why, and then say, I don't feel comfortable talking to you without a lawyer. I'm not going to talk to you without a lawyer present. And look up exactly what to say in your state that means I'm not cooperating anymore. Go fish. Again, going through the paperwork, whether you have a valid or invalid passport, to throw you in jail for providing ID that they're going to just run a background check and then send you on your way, versus just doing that and getting out of your face. Be nice, but also say, I've been told by my lawyer never to talk to a police officer if they're not upfront about why they're talking to me, and you're being shifty. And you could also mention, by the way, a badge is not legally considered primary identification, and that's all I can see. I don't have your ID, and I don't want to look at it. It's not my business, but for all I know, you're just dressed up as a police officer. And I also might want to bring up that in the current era, Trump has made it easier for police to break the law. And cops get away with stuff because they have immunity, qualified or otherwise, effectively. And then repeat, I don't feel comfortable talking to you because I don't think you have my best interests in mind, so I want a lawyer present. And whether you have valid ID on you or not, he has to think, okay, do I really want to just take this guy, throw him in a jail cell, and wait for the lawyer to show up and then argue with him? Or do I just, and then the last thing the cop's going to think of, unless they're completely crazy, do I want to sit in front of a judge and explain why I ignored ID? Even if it's invalid, I can use it to look them up. I can check to see who the fucker is. Okay. And again, you need to make your own dossier and make it better than the FBI can make, and Interpol. Seriously. And then try to get rid of every record you can that isn't absolutely necessary out in the wild, out on the internet, everything you can. And challenge through the credit reporting agencies every single claim that you owe money on something, because these are aged out debts and they should be removed from your credit report. Or whatever claim you want to. You're going to have to look that up elsewhere. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Don't follow my advice. My papers are never good. They're never in order. And it makes it more of a pain in the ass to deal with me than to just let me go, because they never had a basis for stopping me anyway, because it's always a fishing expedition unless otherwise noted. Always. And hey, maybe you can get dual citizenship in Canada and really piss them off, carrying 2 different versions of ID on you, and etc. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And this has been Papers, Please. Yours are not in order. Part 2, the surveillance state. How to evade this bullshit, because it's going to get worse in the next few years. Accept it, move on, let's adapt, and survive. Bye.